We discovered our missing brother had been living in a secret bunker beneath our house for 15 years, stealing our money, selling our secrets, and blackmailing us with surveillance footage. When I exposed him, he lost everything. The Harrison family thought their biggest tragedy was losing their youngest son David 15 years ago. They were wrong. Their biggest tragedy was that he had never actually left. He had been living beneath their feet, systematically destroying their lives for his own twisted entertainment and financial gain. What they would discover in their basement would expose the most sophisticated family betrayal in modern history. Sarah Harrison had always been the responsible one in the family. As the eldest of 4 children, she had naturally taken on the role of organizer and problem solver whenever family crises arose. When her parents, Robert and Margaret Harrison, decided to downsize after 43 years in their Victorian home on Maple Street, Sarah immediately volunteered to coordinate the entire estate sale process. The house held decades of memories within its ornate walls and creaking wooden floors. Built in 1952 by a paranoid Cold War veteran, the 3-story Victorian had been the Harrison family home since 1985. Every room told a story of their lives. The kitchen, where Margaret had taught all 4 children to bake her famous chocolate chip cookies. The living room, where they had opened Christmas presents around a massive oak tree each December. And the finished basement, where the children had spent countless winter afternoons playing board games and watching movies. But here's where the story takes its first shocking turn. The house inspection revealed something that shouldn't have been possible. Timothy Walsh, a certified home inspector with 25 years of experience, had seen plenty of unusual discoveries in old houses. He had found forgotten time capsules, hidden Prohibition-era bars, and even the occasional family treasure, tucked away in forgotten corners. But what he discovered in the Harrison basement would become the most disturbing case of his entire career. Walsh told Sarah there was something seriously wrong with the measurements as he pointed his thermal gun at the basement wall. According to the original 1952 blueprints, there should have been a 12 by 16-foot storage room behind the furnace area, but all they could see was solid concrete, painted the same gray color as the rest of the basement walls. The thermal imaging revealed an impossible truth. Someone had built a secret living space behind what appeared to be an impenetrable barrier. Sarah initially dismissed the findings as a paperwork error from 7 decades ago. Old houses often had discrepancies between original architectural plans and actual construction, especially when multiple owners had made modifications over the years. But Walsh insisted something was fundamentally wrong. His advanced thermal equipment showed clear temperature variations that indicated not just empty space, but actively heated and ventilated living quarters behind the false wall. What Sarah discovered when she investigated that wall would shatter everything she believed about her family forever. After 30 minutes of careful examination, Sarah found what appeared to be an impossibly well-concealed access panel. The fake concrete surface was actually a sophisticated sliding mechanism that had been painted and textured to match the surrounding basement walls perfectly. Behind the panel was a narrow corridor that led to what could only be described as a fully functional underground apartment. The secret living space was far more advanced than anything Sarah could have imagined. The room measured exactly 12 by 16 feet, with professional-grade ventilation systems, multiple electrical outlets, running water with both hot and cold taps, and even a sophisticated waste management system that had been secretly connected to the main house's sewer line. Solar panels cleverly hidden among the roof's regular maintenance equipment powered the entire operation through an intricate wiring system that completely bypassed the main house's electrical meter. But the technology in the bunker was where the story became absolutely terrifying. Multiple high-definition monitors lined one entire wall, displaying live feeds from cameras hidden throughout every room of the house above. Sarah watched in horror as she could see herself on one screen, standing in the basement, while other monitors showed empty bedrooms, the kitchen, living areas, bathrooms, and even the garage. The surveillance system was so comprehensive that there wasn't a single private space in the entire house that wasn't being monitored and recorded. Dozens of external hard drives were organized in a professional server rack, labeled with dates going back 15 years. Each drive contained terabytes of footage, meticulously cataloged by family member, room, and type of activity. Sarah's hands shook as she realized what this meant. Someone had been watching, recording, and studying her family's most intimate moments for over a decade and a half. That's when she heard a voice behind her that would change everything forever. Standing in the bunker entrance was David, her brother, who had supposedly vanished without a trace at age 16. Now, 31 years old, he looked like a stranger who had lived underground for too long. Thin, pale, with an unhealthy complexion, and eyes that held a disturbing intensity that immediately made Sarah's skin crawl. His clothes were expensive but worn, and he carried himself with an unsettling confidence that suggested he had been expecting this moment for a long time. David greeted Sarah as if he had been expecting her to find him eventually, his voice carrying a chilling calmness that made her blood run cold. He seemed genuinely pleased to see her, like a host welcoming a guest to his carefully prepared domain. There was no surprise, no panic, no shame, only a disturbing pride in what he had built and maintained for 15 years. But here's where David's true evil was revealed. He hadn't been hiding in fear or shame for 15 years. David calmly explained that he had been running a sophisticated criminal operation from his underground lair, treating his family's lives like a business opportunity. He had been intercepting family mail for over a decade, carefully steaming open letters, photographing contents, and resealing them so perfectly that no one ever suspected tampering. He had gained access to family bank accounts through information gathered from surveillance footage, watching family members enter passwords and PIN numbers during private moments. The scope of David's criminal enterprise was breathtaking in its calculated cruelty. He had been selling private medical information about his family members to pharmaceutical companies and insurance firms. He had used compromising footage to blackmail not only his own relatives, but also neighbors, family friends, and local business owners who had visited the house over the years. With sickening pride, David gestured toward filing cabinets full of evidence, telling Sarah that he owned all of them. Every secret affair, every financial mistake, every embarrassing moment, every private medical condition, every family argument. He had it all documented, organized, and ready to be weaponized for profit or entertainment. He bragged about how much money people and organizations would pay for this kind of detailed personal information. Sarah's horror deepened as David revealed the true extent of his systematic betrayal of their family. David continued with disturbing enthusiasm, explaining how he had been systematically stealing from his own family while they grieved his disappearance. Over 15 years, he had accessed their father's business accounts and embezzled over $300,000 through carefully planned microtransactions that were too small to trigger immediate attention. He had sold their mother's detailed medical information to pharmaceutical companies conducting illegal research studies, earning thousands of dollars for violating her privacy and potentially endangering her health. The financial theft was just the beginning of David's crimes against his own blood. He had even blackmailed their brother Michael with compromising footage of his private struggle with alcoholism, extorting monthly payments of $1,500 to keep the evidence secret. When their sister Lisa had gone through her difficult divorce, David had been selling private information about her financial situation to her ex-husband's attorneys, helping them build a stronger case against her. He told Sarah that the beauty of his operation was that his family had felt sorry for losing him while he was making a fortune off their misery. Every tear they had shed, every prayer they had said, every hope they had maintained for his safe return, all of it had been happening while he watched and profited from their emotional pain. But David's most evil revelation was yet to come. The sabotage had been intentional and systematic. Not only had David been stealing and blackmailing his family, but he had been actively sabotaging their relationships and opportunities for his own twisted entertainment. When Sarah's marriage had fallen apart 3 years earlier, it wasn't due to natural relationship problems or incompatibility issues. David had been orchestrating the destruction by sending anonymous letters to her husband with fabricated evidence of affairs that never happened. The anonymous letters had been masterfully crafted to create maximum damage. David had used information gathered from surveillance footage to make the fake affairs seem plausible, including details about Sarah's daily routines, work schedule, and personal habits that only someone with intimate knowledge could have known. Her husband had received dozens of these letters over several months, each one designed to erode trust and create suspicion until the marriage became unsalvageable. David laughed as Sarah backed toward the exit, boasting about how he had been playing puppet master with all their lives. Every major family crisis, every mysterious financial problem, every relationship breakdown, every bit of bad luck that had befallen the Harrison family, that had all been David's handiwork. He called his family idiots for never suspecting his involvement in their systematic misfortunes. When their parents had started experiencing serious financial troubles 5 years earlier, David had been the mastermind behind their problems. He had been stealing and destroying important business documents, manipulating their computer files, and even making anonymous calls to their father's clients with false information designed to damage his professional reputation and cost him contracts. That's when Sarah realized she had heard enough, and it was time for David to face the consequences of his crimes. But Sarah didn't run or panic like David clearly expected her to do. Instead, she pulled out her smartphone and started recording everything David was saying, knowing from her years working in corporate law that criminals often love to brag about their crimes when they think they're safe. David was so eager to share his accomplishments and demonstrate his superior intelligence that he couldn't resist providing detailed confessions. For over 20 minutes, Sarah let David detail every theft, every blackmail scheme, every act of sabotage, and every violation of privacy, while her phone captured crystal-clear audio and video evidence. He explained his methods for accessing bank accounts, described his network of criminal contacts who purchased stolen information, and even showed her physical evidence of his crimes stored throughout the bunker. David warned Sarah that she was making a mistake if she thought anyone would believe her accusations. He claimed to have enough evidence to destroy every person in their family, threatening to release the most damaging footage to local media, social networks, and professional contacts if Sarah crossed him. He had spent 15 years building what he called his nuclear option, a comprehensive collection of evidence that could ruin the lives of everyone he had ever known. But Sarah had a plan that David's criminal arrogance hadn't anticipated, and his threats had just provided her with additional evidence of extortion. While David continued his detailed threats and criminal confessions, Sarah was secretly texting her brother Michael and the local police department. She sent Michael the address and told him to bring their parents immediately, explaining only that she had discovered something impossible, that they needed to see with their own eyes. She sent the police her exact location and informed them she had discovered evidence of major financial crimes and was currently documenting confessions from the perpetrator. David was so intoxicated by his own perceived cleverness and so eager to finally have an audience for his criminal accomplishments that he didn't notice Sarah's strategic communications. He continued providing detailed evidence of his crimes while she recorded everything and coordinated the response that would destroy his carefully built criminal empire. What happened next would obliterate David's operation and expose 15 years of family betrayal. Within 45 minutes, the basement was filled with police officers, FBI financial crime investigators, and Sarah's completely shocked family members. David's underground bunker was a prosecutor's dream. A meticulously organized archive of evidence documenting 15 years of theft, fraud, blackmail, harassment, and privacy violations. The surveillance equipment alone represented multiple felony charges under federal wiretapping and stalking laws. Detective Maria Rodriguez, who specialized in financial crimes, later said she had never seen such a comprehensive criminal operation run by a single individual. The level of organization, the sophistication of the technology, and the systematic nature of the crimes suggested someone with both advanced technical skills and a complete lack of empathy for his victims. David's arrogant confidence crumbled completely as handcuffs were placed on his wrists and his rights were read to him. The brother, who had spent 15 years believing he was smarter than everyone else, suddenly found himself surrounded by law enforcement officers who understood exactly how to dismantle criminal enterprises like his. His underground kingdom was being systematically documented and seized as evidence. The FBI investigation that followed revealed that David's crimes extended far beyond his own family members. He had been running an extensive identity theft ring, selling detailed personal information to criminal networks across 3 states. He had been blackmailing neighbors, family friends, and local business owners with surveillance footage gathered during their visits to the Harrison house over the years. Federal investigators discovered that David's criminal network included contacts in organized crime, corporate espionage, and illegal medical research. His underground operation was valued at an estimated $2.3 million in stolen assets and illegal profits generated over 15 years. The sophisticated nature of his crimes elevated the charges from simple theft to federal racketeering violations. But here's where David's evil plan backfired in the most spectacular way possible. All of David's stolen money and assets were immediately seized by federal authorities under asset forfeiture laws. Every bank account, every hidden cache of cash, every piece of valuable equipment in his bunker, all of it was confiscated and prepared for return to his victims. Sarah's family received back the $300,000 he had embezzled from their father's business accounts, plus additional damages and interest calculated by federal investigators. More importantly for the family's peace of mind, David's extensive blackmail materials were destroyed by court order. Teams of federal technicians supervised the complete destruction of all surveillance footage, ensuring that his threats could never be carried out and his victims' privacy could finally be restored. His 15 years of criminal work vanished overnight in a carefully monitored digital bonfire. The family that David had spent years trying to systematically destroy was finally united. United in their determination to see justice served. During David's federal trial, every family member testified against him, providing detailed accounts of the psychological and financial damage his crimes had caused. Their mother, Margaret, testified about the health problems she had developed from the stress of believing her son was missing or dead. Their father, Robert, described the business relationships that had been damaged by David's sabotage operations. Sarah's testimony was particularly powerful as she described the destruction of her marriage and the years of guilt she had carried, believing she had somehow failed as a wife. Learning that her divorce had been orchestrated by her own brother through a campaign of lies and manipulation had been devastating. But it had also provided her with the closure she needed to rebuild her life. The federal judge called it one of the most disturbing cases of family betrayal and systematic criminal enterprise he had encountered in 30 years on the bench. David was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for financial crimes, harassment, stalking, racketeering, and violations of federal wiretapping laws. The sentence included a lifetime ban on possessing surveillance equipment and mandatory psychological counseling. Sarah's parents immediately consulted with their estate attorney and changed their will, transferring David's entire inheritance to Sarah in recognition of her courage in exposing his crimes and protecting the family. The inheritance included the family home, investment accounts, and a life insurance policy worth nearly $400,000. But the most satisfying justice came from David's complete social and financial destruction. The local and national media covered David's story extensively, fascinated by the details of how he had faked his disappearance to become a sophisticated criminal. His mugshot and detailed account of his crimes were shared across social media platforms, making him instantly recognizable as a cautionary tale about family betrayal and criminal arrogance. Former friends, neighbors, and community members who had been searching for David for 15 years learned that he had been laughing at their concern while systematically stealing from them and violating their privacy. The community that had once prayed for his safe return now viewed him as a predator who had exploited their compassion and trust. David became a social pariah with absolutely no support system, no financial resources, and no prospect of rebuilding his life after serving his sentence. Even his fellow inmates in federal prison learned about his crimes against his own family and treated him with the contempt reserved for the lowest categories of criminals. 6 months after David's conviction and sentencing, Sarah received a pathetic letter from him in federal prison. The letter was a masterpiece of manipulation and self-pity, with David alternating between begging for forgiveness and attempting to justify his actions as mental illness. He claimed he had been suffering from undiagnosed psychological conditions that had made him unable to control his behavior. He even had the audacity to ask Sarah to visit him in prison and to put money in his commissary account so he could purchase basic necessities. Sarah's response was swift, decisive, and final. She threw the letter in the trash without finishing it and instructed the prison mail system to block all future correspondence from David. She had no intention of maintaining any relationship with someone who had spent 15 years systematically destroying her family's lives for profit and entertainment. Meanwhile, Sarah's family had never been closer, more financially secure, or more appreciative of their relationships with each other. With David's stolen money returned and his threats permanently neutralized, the family was able to rebuild their relationships without the manipulation and sabotage that had been poisoning their interactions for 15 years. They finally understood why so many family gatherings had ended in mysterious arguments, why business deals had fallen through unexpectedly, and why personal relationships had seemed cursed with bad luck. Sarah used part of the recovered funds and her inheritance to start her own legal practice, specializing in helping victims of financial crimes and family fraud. Her personal experience with David's criminal operation gave her unique insights into how these crimes affected families and communities. Her practice quickly became successful as word spread about her expertise and personal commitment to justice. The family home was eventually sold for significantly more than market value, with potential buyers fascinated by the secret bunker story that had made national news. The new owners, a young couple with a sense of adventure, decided to renovate the bunker into a unique home office and entertainment space, completely removing all traces of David's criminal enterprise. A year after David's arrest and conviction, Sarah reflected on how his attempt to destroy his family had actually made them stronger and more united. His criminal operation had been sophisticated and long-running, but his arrogance and need for recognition had ultimately been his downfall. He had spent 15 years thinking he was smarter than everyone else, never realizing that his victims would eventually fight back with intelligence, courage, and the full force of the legal system. The underground bunker that had once housed David's criminal empire was eventually converted into a wine cellar by the home's new owners. But Sarah kept one memento from the whole ordeal. She framed David's federal prison ID photo in her office as a permanent reminder that criminals always get caught eventually, especially when they're arrogant enough to confess their crimes to their victims. David's 15 years of sophisticated criminal work had earned him a quarter-century in federal prison, complete social destruction, permanent financial ruin, and the eternal hatred of his own family. As Sarah built her successful legal career representing crime victims and helping families recover from financial fraud, David spent his days in a 6-by-8-foot federal prison cell. He was finally experiencing the isolation he had inflicted on others. Except this time, the surveillance cameras were watching him instead of his victims. His requests for family visits were permanently denied, his letters went unanswered, and his commissary account remained empty. The family that had once searched desperately for their missing son now considered him dead to them in every way that mattered. The most perfectly ironic justice of all was that David had spent 15 years watching his family through hidden cameras, documenting their private moments for his own criminal purposes. Now, he would spend the next 25 years being watched by prison guards and surveillance systems, with every moment of his existence monitored, recorded, and controlled by others. In the end, David's criminal empire crumbled because he made the same fundamental mistake that destroys all criminals eventually. He underestimated his victims and overestimated his own intelligence. Sarah had proven that sometimes the best revenge isn't planning something elaborate. It's simply letting criminals destroy themselves with their own arrogance while carefully documenting everything they confess. And the most satisfying part of the entire ordeal? David finally got the complete isolation he had chosen 15 years earlier, except this time it was permanent, public, and accompanied by the knowledge that his victims had won. My brother spent 15 years thinking he was the smartest criminal in the world. He was wrong. The smartest person in the room was his victim, who knew exactly how to destroy him. Sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes. What would you do if you discovered a family member had been secretly watching and stealing from you for years? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for daily shocking family drama stories like this one. Smash that like button if you enjoyed this incredible story of justice. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Comment your thoughts and share your own family drama experiences. We upload a brand new jaw-dropping real-life story every single day. Don't miss tomorrow's shocking tale that will leave you speechless. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next incredible story.